Okay, welcome back everyone to another Pixelborn gameplay episode here at the Lorcana Academy. I am Airball, I am your tenured tryhard on the faculty, as you know by now. And today we're taking a look at another deck list that I found over on Lorcana Decklist Twitter today. And it is like an amber amethyst mid-rangey pile. So the meta right now on Pixelborn, at least, steel is everywhere. So we had like a brief window where it was all aggro all the time. People were playing amber steel with your Lilo Simba combo, and that led to people like adapting to the aggro decks, and that meant playing a lot more steel in their builds. So direct damage, like fire the cannons, smash, and most importantly, Tinkerbell. So obviously the 3-ink Tinkerbell into the bigger Tinkerbell that does damage when it comes into play, and then also does further damage when she banishes characters, makes it very difficult to play small creatures. So the meta has moved on a little bit from the aggro plans that were around a couple weeks ago and has now moved into like this mid-rangey grindy pile. And I think the best way to take advantage of that is honestly with one of the deck lists I played earlier on the channel. So you can go back, we can maybe put a link to it somewhere. The the Ruby Amethyst control deck that I played earlier on the channel, I think is very good at dealing with those steel-based decks because they don't do so well when you don't have characters in play, and Ruby Amethyst is pretty good at functioning without characters in play, so you don't have to play their game. This is not a control deck. It is still a mid-range deck, but it is a mid-range deck that tends towards control, that tries to outgrind the steel. And you have the core parts of Amber. You've gotten rid of like the super aggressive side of things, but you have kept the grindy bits. In particular, you have 4 copies of Rapunzel who, if you have damage on your characters, maybe by getting hit by Smash or something like that, then you get to turn that into card draw. And you have big butts in the deck as well that let you take advantage of that. So you have Mr. Smee, which is not a card you normally see, but with 5 willpower, it means he can take a hit. Rapunzel can take 3 damage off of him and you draw 3 cards. So really, the deck is trying to build around that card, build around Rapunzel. You also have other big butts in the form of Ursula and the Queen, and Elsa, of course, can hold her own as well. So the Amethyst side of the deck is basically exactly the same as in the control structure. You have the deck is doing basically exactly the same thing it was before. You have your 4 copies of Maleficent. You have a few copies of the Queen, in this case 4, for card draw, and you have a bunch of Elsas to lock down the board early. Elsa's pretty. The 3-ink Elsa is good because she can lock down or exert an opponent's character on your turn. You can immediately fight them, and you can have Rapunzel. So if you have like Dr. Facilier in play on turn 2, and then you play Elsa on turn 3, and then on the opponent's turn 3, they play a character that Dr. Facilier wants to fight, then Elsa can tap that down, Dr. Facilier can fight, and then you can play Rapunzel, take the damage off of him, and draw your cards. So that is so Elsa into Rapunzel is a pretty good 3-4 play. Otherwise, you have Elsa to lock down the board when you get to your late game. You have Jafar to be just a good statted character once you've taken over the game with card draw. And, of course, Maleficent singing Friends on the Other Side is still one of the most powerful things that you can do in the game. Hades is, I don't remember if I mentioned him earlier or not. Hades is very good at grinding as well. When you play him, you get to return a character card from your discard to your hand. So with all of the grab your swords in play, Maleficent and other 2 willpower creatures don't feel so great. But if Maleficent ends up dying, then you can play Hades after the fact, get her back, and play her immediately for more card draw. So it's a really good way to rebuild from the board wipe that is everywhere in the format. So that's basically the core of the deck. You're trying to play a mid-range game plan, stay alive to the mid-game, take over with Rapunzel, and then close it out from there. The only card I haven't talked about is You Have Forgotten Me, which is also a 4 of in the list. I think 4 is probably too much, but the card is very powerful. So if you're up against a strategy that is like Control, and they have been trying to get to 6 and 7 and 8 ink spells, and they've knocked themselves down to like 2 or 3 cards in hand, then you can play You Have Forgotten Me and knock out their last few cards and force them to top deck answers for the rest of the game if you're able to put enough pressure on. So You Have Forgotten Me is good if you have a board state already and the opponent has put themselves in a position where discarding cards. Discarding 2 cards is very uncomfortable for them. So that happens a lot, but I don't know that it happens enough that you want to have 4 of these in your deck. Because obviously if you've done it once and your opponent has no cards left, then drawing it off the top is not really good. It doesn't really accomplish anything. So I think 4 is probably too many, but we'll see. And I guess that means we'll just hop into the games now and see how the deck does. But if you want to play this deck in paper, then you can head on over to Coolstuffinc.com, find these cards. I know that they just had a big restock. You can use the code Academy for 5% off your order at checkout. I think this deck is fun. I think that this one will be a good one to play in paper if you don't want to force yourself to play control and you can't stomach steel mirrors. So let's head on over to the games and see how the deck does. Okay, on the play with a reasonably good opening hand. 3 Rapunzel's probably too many. I think I'm going to go down to 1 because we do not have anything for turn 2, and we don't have a spectacular play on 1 yet. I do like Elsa, Maleficent, Rapunzel. Olaf is fine for ink. I think I do want to send back the You've Forgotten Me for now. Okay, drawing 2 8 ink Elsa is probably not where we want it to be. Do I want this Olaf in play or not, I guess is the question. We're very bottlenecked on 3s. But they're good 3s. I think I'm going to turn this Olaf into ink and hope that just being on the play means that we can get on the board a little later and still be okay. Emerald, okay. Emerald and... Well, kind of wish I had kept that Olaf. I have not seen any aggro on the ladder in the last several days, and of course the second I make that decision is the second I get punished. Yeah. So I think this is going to be too slow. The discard spell is going to be way too slow against this this opening draw. And I'm guessing if they inked Flynn Rider, they have another one coming, so they're going to be questing for 4 on turn 3. Yeah, they do. So we are kind of behind the curve here, and if I had kept that that Olaf, then we would be in okay shape here. I feel like we do have to play Maleficent here and try to draw out of this. Elsa's going to be useful, I guess, as a means to get this Elsa down sooner. So we'll send back this Jafar, play Maleficent, draw a card, and try to outrun this. Or just like try to weather the storm, I guess. I mean, it's wild. I have seen, this is the first aggro deck I've seen on the ladder in days. So they quest with Flynn, and they also quest with Maleficent, which is an interesting decision. Now we get to Maleficent fight their Maleficent and play Rapunzel and draw, which seems really good for me. So do I want this extra Maleficent or do I want this Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙳𝙺? That's the ink decision we need to make. And I think the Maleficent in hand lets us not be super concerned with trading for the Flynn Rider, so I think I am going to ink 𝚉𝙺𝙳𝙺, fight their 1 ink Maleficent, play Rapunzel, and draw my card. Say go. Opponent's at 6, they're questing for 4 more this turn, so they're at 10. And remember, we were on the play. So they've had a pretty good 1, 2, 3 curve. All 3 of their plays have quested for 2 lore per turn. And Magic Mirror, interesting. And they're just going for it. They know how to do one thing and one thing only. They came to quest. So if we fight Flynn, we get to discard something, but we have Hades and we can just bring that thing right back if we want. We have 5 ink this turn, so Maleficent. Oh, you know what it is? It's Elsa here. Because that means on turn 6 we can play this Elsa and lock down their board, whatever they play. So that means it's going to be Elsa and Simba this turn, which means one of these Maleficents gets inked. And, am I discarding Hades? Like, I don't think I can tolerate leaving Flynn on the board. So I have to discard something. I guess I'm discarding an Elsa and being able to get it back with Hades on a future turn is not that bad. Because we can only play one of these. So here's Maleficent fighting Flynn. I'll pitch this Elsa. Play Simba as a bodyguard and quest with Rapunzel. And hopefully Elsa shifting onto our Elsa helps us turn the corner here. Oh wow, they're drawing off the magic mirror. And inking Mad Hatter, so their hand is really clunky here. They have a hand full of like 5 drops plus. That's the only way that turn makes sense. So if we fight the Cheshire Cat, then we lose the thing that challenges it as it gets banished. That doesn't feel so bad. So Stitch is going to get turned into ink this turn. Almost certainly. Let's start with... I don't think I'm going to shift Elsa into play, so let's start with Maleficent here. And draw. Find Rapunzel. It's not great yet, but Elsa will be able to tap something down in the future. Like this Elsa. So what do I want to get banished? I think it's Simba, because if I draw friends on the other side, I'll want to keep the Maleficent around. So we'll fight Cheshire Cat first. Also, keeping Maleficent around is nice because it leaves something with damage in play that I can use Rapunzel on. So I'll trade Simba for Cheshire Cat here. That's fine with me. Turn Stitch into ink. And I think all systems are go to quest for some lore. Cruella for 2. Probably came off the top, I would think. And Mother knows best. Okay, bouncing. Bouncing Rapunzel is, I guess, a choice you can make. It seems awkward, though. This feels like it's tap down Cruella. Well, I guess we can play Rapunzel and draw off Maleficent first. Sure. We found friends on the other side. That's outstanding. So we can tap down Cruella, fight if we want. But, like, at this point, who cares? Yeah, I think it's just ink Mr. Smee. And I should have done this in the other order, I guess. But I'll sing with Maleficent, draw some cards. And I think I'm just going to town. Like, let's let them commit more to this board. We have Elsa in hand, after all. How bad could things get? Sequencing was rough on that turn, not gonna lie. But I think the result was okay. Inking Hans. Yeah, the opponent's hand is awkward here, for sure. Okay, so Genie bouncing Rapunzel seems okay to me. So now we can shift Elsa into play for 6. We'll have 2 ink left over. That's not outstanding. We can also... what? Yeah, I was going to say we could tap down this Genie with Elsa, but we don't have great fights. Yeah, it's probably just, at this point, ink one of these Rapunzels, play Elsa, lock them down, go. Actually, it's probably ink one of these queens, right? Rapunzel will draw stuff when she comes into play, almost certainly, but the queen will take a little more effort to make work. And next turn, we're threatening to quest for 6. Cusco. And the Duke. So next turn, they're going to quest for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they have presented lethal. Can't fight the Genie. We can fight the Cusco on board, right? We can tap Cusco down. Oh, we can't tap Cusco down because that doesn't work. Well, we have a lot of options here. The safest thing is probably have Elsa tap down Duke, fight Duke with big Elsa, take damage off of her. That leaves 4 or 5 ink left. And we can play Hades and recur another Elsa, which seems pretty good. Yeah, I think so. Find you have forgotten me. So at this point, they're going to quest for 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can either double fight Cruella here, and they get to bounce something, which doesn't feel great. I think I'm just going to double quest here and play Hades, get back 𝚉𝙴. I think I'm going to ink You Have Forgotten Me because I think that we are past the point in the game where that matters, and I'll also put Stitch on board. And now we're threatening to quest for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they have to do some fighting of their own. Multiple Cuscos is problematic, though. The genie blows himself up on 𝚉𝙴, which is interesting. I guess the point is that... Oh, I don't know what the point is anymore. I was going to say, I guess the point is that they are threatening lethal here, but I guess there's no way for them to stop us without doing that, so... Yeah, how much are we questing for here? Does it even matter? We're certainly not doing anything but questing, so let's just let Pixelborn do the math for us. It's got to be close. Yeah, it was 1 short. Playing 𝚉𝙴 here doesn't achieve anything. So let's just play Jafar and I guess the Queen and pass. No board wipe in their colors to worry about, so just want as many things as possible to represent lethal. Yeah, and that's not going to cut it. So it looks like we got there. Opponent's draw was like definitely pretty awkward, and not really one of the powerful decks in the meta, but definitely showed you the power of our deck and all the different lines that you need to worry about. On to the next one. Okay, on the draw with a pretty clunky opening hand. Definitely don't want these 𝚉𝙴s. I don't think I want this Jafar, and I don't think I want the second Olaf, but I think Olaf Maleficent Friends is a good place to start. Okay. It's not awful. We'll see what we're up against, decide whether to play this Olaf on turn 1 or not. Opponent has their own Olaf, and so they chose not to play it. If we are in the mirror, is Olaf good or not? I think in the mirror, Olaf is good because he has 3 willpower. He can fight something with 2, and Rapunzel can come heal him later. So I think I am down to play the Olaf on turn 1. 𝚻𝙴𝙳𝙺𝙰𝙼 and Magic Mirror. Okay, so it's possibly control then. If it's control, then these You Have Forgotten Me will be pretty good. And if it's control, then Mr. Smee is pretty bad. So I think it's going to be ink Mr. Smee. Play 𝚻𝙴𝙳𝙺 because I think getting clock on them is important, and I'll quest with Olaf. Magic Mirror is not really a card that you'd expect to see in anything other than control, so I think we're up against Ruby Amethyst here. No. Amethyst Sapphire. Interesting. So ramp. So I think that these You Have Forgotten Me's will be pretty... Well, it's tough to say. On the play, they would have been very good. It's still going to be a little while before we get to play them, unfortunately. So I think I'm going to ink this 𝚉𝙴 here. I'm going to play Maleficent, draw my card, and try to keep applying pressure. Like we've played a 1-2-3 curve against them. Our deck isn't capable of going super aggressive, which is one of the flaws of its like mid-range construction. It doesn't really have the ability to go fast when it needs to. Like right now, we're hoping that opponent spends a couple cards ramping, and then You Have Forgotten Me makes their decisions painful. Yeah, okay. So Friends on the other side for free, and then I think You Have Forgotten Me probably causes them some pain. Found the Queen. Queen's good. Queen's not as fast as Maleficent, though. What's next turn? Next turn will be a 5 ink turn, and we won't have a whole lot to do with that 5 ink. Yeah, I think I'm going to ink this Maleficent here. And You Have Forgotten Me. And then we have a choice, I guess, about whether to double fight this Mickey with our characters or not. See what they discard. Discard Ariel and Eye of the Fates, which is pretty weak 2 cards, so it stands to reason that maybe their 3rd card is also somewhat weak. If I leave this Mickey around, then they can double fight my Maleficent with their Mickey, which makes my life awkward. Sure. Because I want that Maleficent around to be able to sing. Although I guess, like, my Maleficent dying is not the end of the world, because it gives us a target for Hades. Bringing back Maleficent with Hades is pretty good. Mickey Mouse fights Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙲𝙺𝙺𝙺, which I guess is mostly free for them. They play their own Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙲𝙺. Okay, so we can, if we want, get their last 2 cards. Which is tempting. Like, if they have Let It Go or something in hand, and we play the Queen, then that's kind of rough. Because we can't even recur. Like, the Queen will be in our Inkwell. Yeah, I don't think there's a world where we don't sing Friends on the Other Side with Maleficent here. We have 5 ink. Ooh, Rapunzel was a very good draw. So that lets us take the damage off 𝚉𝙴𝙲𝙺, double fight Mickey, draw a bunch of cards. Sure, I'm in. And I'm willing to trade Olaf here, I think. And hand is still kind of clunky. Next turn we'll have 6. So like Jafar Simba or Rapunzel Simba makes sense, which makes me... Or even You Have Forgotten Me Simba makes sense, which makes me not want to ink the 2-drop. So I guess I'm inking Jafar. And pass. Develop Your Brain. Okay, that's a good start for us. Makes me feel good about sandbagging the You Have Forgotten Me a little longer. Okay, so they're empty-handed now. Or I guess almost. They have 1 card in hand. It's 1 random card off the top. They'll have optionally 3 cards next turn. It's a little awkward. The alternative is I can just play Jafar and try to get really far ahead of him. Like Jafar ahead of him. Get it? I'm sorry. That's my fault. Yeah, maybe the time has just come to ink this. Maybe I'm just never going to use it. And we'll play Jafar. Play Simba as a bodyguard. Fight their Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙺𝙺 in quest. Force them to deal with us. Like, our hand is really good. I feel like most things we can be doing are better than just playing cards that make them discard too. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is about as good as it gets, I think. So we quest with the team. We can play Rapunzel, draw 2. Have 3 ink left over for nothing unless we draw something. I feel like it's... Well... Yeah, we can even play Hades here and recur Maleficent and play her. Maybe that's the best line. And ink the Queen in order to do it. Yeah, I'm in for that. And pass. Opponent has a bunch of ink, but doesn't really look like they have anything to use it on. Hades is good, but I don't think Hades is good enough here. Are we questing for enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exactly lethal. Oh, I miscounted? No, I didn't. Okay, cool. Yeah, got there in the end. Yeah, so opponents... Sapphire is just such a weak color in Lorcana right now. Like, if you're not doing, like, double Aurora stuff, then it's really kind of mopey. Just lack of top end, not finding the big stuff to ramp into, and your opponents are just doing more powerful stuff. Okay, one more. Okay, on the play, as usual, aggressively getting rid of the non-inkable cards. We don't need a duplicate Simba. I don't think we need a second one-drop, and I think Olaf is a little better in the current meta than Stitch is. So Olaf, Simba, Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙲𝙺? Sure. I mean, one of these can get turned into ink if they have to. Alright, I mean, this hand is pretty mopey. Yeah. How am I feeling about Olaf? Do I want Olaf on turn 1 or not? In the dark. In the dark against a possibly aggressive deck, I guess I have to. Like, on Pixelborn, you have no idea what you're paired with. And if I happen to get paired against, like, turn 1 Lilo, I'll be very happy I played Olaf here. But if I'm up against Control, and that 𝚉𝙴 maybe sends the message that we are, then I might regret this. I guess it's just Ink... Well, it's Ink Simba for sure, and the question is, are we playing Simba or are we playing Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙲𝙺? And I think the answer is Simba because it's a more aggressive play. They're not going to play anything that we can fight with Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙗 next turn. Whereas we can quest with both of these, and Simba's ability will actually have meaning. A lot of 3-drops in our deck, and haven't found any. Opponent plays an Archimedes to their Inkwell instead of playing it organically. So that is subject of some concern. Like, they could have played it to the board and they didn't, so they're confident that the rest of their hand can deal with our board. And we can Ink 𝚉𝙴, play Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙗 and Olaf, which is probably the most aggressive thing we can do. It does feel like You Have Forgotten Me is not going to be super relevant. I can also just see inking Olaf here because we want to play one of these 4-drops and we want to guarantee that we can do it. So it could just be ink Olaf, play Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙗, which I think I like more. Like, this Ursula needs to get played at some point, which means we need to get to 7. Yeah, we're up against Control, of course. We don't have a 3-drop in play to play the friends on the other side, which stinks. We can just play friends on the other side. I kind of like just ink You Have Forgotten Me, play 𝚉𝙴, and have 𝚉𝙴 sing it next turn, because they don't have access to Dragon's Fire to kill it immediately. Yeah, I think I like this. If they have Rafiki, then this still isn't so bad. Like, Rafiki can fight Simba, but Aladdin doesn't have any good fights after that. Like, he can hit Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙗, but Dr. 𝚉𝙴𝙗 will live and be able to trade with him on the crackback. Interesting. Pixelborn has been having these, like, weird graphical issues where, like, they clearly sung Friends on the Other Side with Aladdin, but it also shows that they used their ink. The last release of Pixelborn, I think, has been pretty buggy. Yeah, and you can see that, like, now that they've inked that, it goes back up to 4. I have actually, like, I've lost games because of this. Like, because the ink count was wrong. And it's weird, right? Because there have been no new card releases. Like, the only things that they've been shipping as changes have been bug fixes. And it's actually, I think, made the client worse, which is weird. All right. So what? We can Friends on the Other Side with 𝚉𝙴. They didn't... They still don't have... Yeah, so they can Dragon's Fire one thing next turn. That thing will probably be 𝚉𝙴. Can play Simba. Yeah, I think I do need more cards. Like, the amount of cards they have over there is kind of outrageous. So let's start there. We find Maleficent and Stitch, which will let us ink Stitch and play Simba if that's what we decide we want to do. I have a choice, I guess, of whether I want damage on Simba or on Dr. Facilier for fighting this Aladdin, and I do think we fight this Aladdin. I don't want them to be able to cheat their other Aladdin into play, the big one. I think I'd rather have the damage on Dr. Facilier than Simba. And am I going to play another Simba, or am I just going to keep it in hand for ink? I think I'm going to play it, given that I have this Maleficent, and I'm going to draw something else. This is the other thing. Like, this clock is always wrong. Like, I thought I had enough time to play this Maleficent there, and I didn't get to. It's my fault, right? Like, I took too long talking about my play and everything, but it is a little annoying that, like, the client is just so rough around the edges. Like, I should have a Maleficent in play and an extra card in hand, and I don't. Because there were definitely, like, 3 seconds on the clock when I was trying to play this Maleficent. Okay, so they have Magic Broom and Mickey Mouse. That's the Wombo combo. That probably means I should not expose Dr. Facilier to anything. If I quest with Simbas, they will die to Mickey Mouse. Maybe that's okay, because I have Hades in hand. Let's start with Maleficent, see what we draw. Jafar. Yeah, you know what? If they do fight the Simbas down, then that means that Jafar will have an easy option to take out Mickey on the crackback, and I don't think they want that. So, yeah, let's just go with the team. I think speed is of the essence against them. Do I want to turn this Jafar into ink right now or not? I don't think there's a good reason to. And I want this Jafar that's in play to be as big as possible. Yeah, and they did have the big Aladdin, so I'm very glad we killed that last one. Broom kills Simba. It'll get bounced to hand. Or it doesn't even kill Simba, it just puts 2 damage on Simba. They replay it. And they put friends on the other side back into their deck, so they're doing the dirtily Amethyst things. I guess I should have maybe turned Jafar into ink, because if I do find an inkable card next turn, then I can play Ursula. They did find Dragon's Fire to kill Jafar, so now Mickey does get to eat Simba with not no consequence, but little consequence. So I think Dr. Facilier, well, something has to trade with this Mickey, right? And I guess I want it to be Maleficent because I can get it back with Hades. And do I want to force them to discard 2? I think the answer is no. I think it's just turn this into ink, play Jafar. And we are threatening lethal here, of course. Magic Broom can fight Simba, and we'll still be questing for 4 unless they have something else. But the Ruby Amethyst deck has lots of ways to kill our things. And could be the board wipe here. If it is, I don't think that's actually so bad. It's not. Instead, it's Dragonfire straight up. Still questing for 3. So, yeah, this is an important decision for them to make. We find an inkable, which is great. So if we quest for 2 here, we go up to 18, play Hades, threaten to quest for 3 more. They need to kill at least one of our things. Alternatively, we can Mr. Smee into ink here. Ursula. They have no lore to lose, so we don't actually get the card, which is pretty lame. Alright, well, we certainly do this questing. And I think I am inking Smee, playing Hades, getting back Maleficent, and I think not playing her, because they need to kill 2 of my things, and it's much easier for them to do that with a board wipe than with 2 kill spells. I think that given that they've already spent, they've spent 2 Dragon's Fires already, so their hand has to be like Maui, Rafiki, Dragon's Fire, like 2 of those. And even if they do that, I'm still able to quest for 1 next turn and threaten lethal again. I guess Elsa would be a reason to play Maleficent. They do have Rafiki. Yeah, if they had 8 ink Elsa, then having 2 extra characters in play would have meant lethal. Oh, they did have Rafiki Dragonfire to prevent lethal. We found Elsa of our own. I mean, I'm just questing with Olaf here and playing Maleficent, both of which are lethal threats. And finding the Queen. Yeah, the Queen isn't going to get turned into ink if I can help it. So we'll just pass. Both of these, again, are lethal. Rafiki can eat Olaf, but they need to find an answer to Maleficent or the game ends. And they've used 3 Dragon's Fire, so not many ways in their deck that they can use to deal with a untapped creature, unexerted creature. I guess Aladdin. Or if they have 2 Maleficents in hand now, I guess, that would have done it. Yeah, they do have another Maleficent. We found Stitch. So, interesting question, I guess. We could Stitch and the Queen, both of which are lethal. Or we can Stitch Elsa, tap both of these things down. I think I'm in to just play both. Like, just keep making their life difficult. Like, when we're at 19, inking Stitch, I think, is unconscionable. I mean, their top end has been good, for sure. We find Rapunzel. So I guess Ursula is a better choice here because she has 8 toughness, which means she can fade a Maleficent attack if they find a way to tap Ursula down again with another Elsa. The 4th Dragonfire. Yeah, the draw from the opponent has kind of been astonishing here, for sure. Finding literal everything they needed off the top. Now... This is an interesting spot too, right? Like if I play Elsa and lock these things down, then it means if they have 8 ink Elsa of their own, then they can't use these things to fight the Elsa right away at least. But I don't think I want to turn this into ink when it's a lethal threat. They're out of Dragon's Fires. They would need exactly other Elsa to deal with this. I guess another Maleficent would also do it. But another Maleficent also makes Elsa look bad. So I think we just play Rapunzel here. Force them to continue to draw their way out of this. They find the board wipe. They found the board wipe and I'm very happy we did this. Yeah, they did. Ooh. Friends on the other side... We turn it into ink and play another Elsa, and that's just a lethal threat. They need to deal with that Elsa, and then another Elsa comes down, even if they do. And if we draw cards with friends, then that means if we don't draw a character that we can play, then we don't get to threaten lethal, and we give them a turn off of needing to answer us. I actually think the conservative play here is to ink friends on the other side and play Elsa and force them to deal with her. Maui's not good enough. And quest, right? Yeah, great, cool. The client wasn't giving me any like visual feedback when I hovered over her, but yeah, we did get there. So yeah, definitely cool. The deck, as you can see, has the ability to hang with the control decks. You need to have some finesse with how you play your cards, but it's not bad. I found that against Steel's medium draws, you're pretty good. Like against the draws that are not like multiple grab your swords, multiple what's it called? Whole New Worlds. Your game is pretty good, but your nut draws against Steel struggle a lot because you don't have anything in your deck. Like you can't empty your hand super quickly against them, and and they can, so their wheel effects are are pretty painful for you, and there's not much you can do about them if you can't force them to discard their hand at the opportune time. And they're good enough at putting pressure on you that like it's hard to find a spot to cast your discard spells. But against everything else in the meta, as you can see, we have pretty good game. It's tough for Amethyst to ever really be bad. So that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments what deck you want to see next. What decks are you playing? What decks are you having trouble with? What decks do you need help with? And you can always, if you want to play these decks in paper, head on over to our sponsor, Coolstuffinc.com, and use code ACADEMY for 5% off your order at checkout. And that's it for me, but I will see you guys in the next one.